Unique landscapes, their colors, their inhabitants, and their special atmosphere. Famous painters have immortalized them on canvas. Timelessly beautiful cities, picturesque valleys, the sea, castles, and rocks. These places continue to fascinate people to this day. What is the secret of their magical attraction? England's far north, a picturesque area that lies between Scotland and the industrial centres of central England. It is here that William Turner finds his destiny as a landscape painter. Expansive panoramas, fishing villages on the rugged coast, green mountains in the Lake District, and a lot of tradition. William Turner travels here for the first time as a young man. An unforgettable experience for him. A commissioned work is the motivation for his trip to the north. The 22-year-old artist from London is to paint the family estate of his noble patron, Edward Lascelles, near Leeds. Harewood House is still quite new in 1797. Today, the manorial complex is often rented by film crews as a historical backdrop. The money that it generates is used to help maintain the estate. David Lascelles came up with the idea. The 8th Earl of Harewood is a film producer himself. He spent most of his life in London, but almost 250 years of family history carries with it responsibilities.
Art had always been an important part of my life. I've only really feel that I've lived here for the last 20 years or so. I've become more and more involved with the running of Harwood, and then obviously that's taken another step up after my father's death. Actually, I live elsewhere on the estate, so I'm here all the time. But actually, where I lay my head at night is not here in the house. Too many people.
Not all of David Lascelles' ancestors recognized the potential that lay in Turner's encounter with Harewood. But he brought all 6 watercolors back to the estate, thus keeping up an old family tradition.
The picture there in the corner, I don't know if you can see it, is of Edward Lascelles, known as Beau Lascelles. He was very much a kind of man of fashion and a genuine patron of the arts. I mean, he had the money, but he also had the eye. He had good taste. He didn't pick any old artist from London to come up to Harwood. He picked Turner, and so he was smart enough to know who was good and who wasn't. Edward was not that much older. It must have felt like a little bit of almost like a sort of golden generation thing. Young men, each with their lives ahead of them, and with extremely promising lives ahead of them.
The young Earl meets an early death, but Turner will become one of Britain's greatest artists. Contemplating his work is an absolute must for landscape painters today. David Steed follows in the footsteps of the world-famous role model. When he found out that Turner had drawn in his immediate vicinity in Yorkshire, the idea for the project was born.
Lots of places that he went that I mean, I'd never even heard of them, even though they were not, you know, maybe quite close to where I lived. And it also makes you look at places that you do know in a completely different way, because he may have seen it from a different viewpoint or seen something else in it that I'd never even thought of.
David Steed is the son of a farmer from Yorkshire. These landscapes, which made such an impression on Turner, are his home.
I've lived away for most of my life, and it was the landscape and nothing else that brought me back here. So I was living 300 miles away in Devon, in the south of England. And I found myself travelling to Yorkshire, leaving the family behind and coming up here and painting.
It has been 20 years now since David finally returned to Yorkshire with his wife. He seeks out and discovers his motifs in the landscapes of northern England. In 1797, William Turner travels to northern England as a draftsman. The old architecture of the region arouses his interest. He sketches a series of castles and monasteries. This ultimately brings him to the rough coast in the northeast, Northumberland. The ruins of Dunstable Castle are particularly fascinating to Turner. This castle, which has defied the elements for centuries, appears in more of his works than any other motif. The former fishing village of Craster lies in the immediate vicinity. On Sunday mornings, the residents meet for a joint leisure activity, organised by Michael Doherty.
That's right. Get cracking and we'll get the boats down to the water.
Just like the former fishermen of the village, the Craster Coastal Rowing Club follows the tides.
I went to the pub, as we normally do on a Sunday morning, and recruited 1 or 2 people who were interested, and we started from there 2 years ago. There's always been rowing by the fishermen, just for sport, in their free time. They would row competitively against each other.
This tradition was long forgotten. Then the local pub supported the development of a ready-made boat kit.
They commissioned a boat designer to design a boat which was capable of being built by people who weren't necessarily boat builders, but electricians, people who were able to use their hands to build a boat. And the first one was built in 2009. And since then, there are something like 1,500 coastal rowing clubs.
The coastal rowing boats are built like Viking boats. They have to be much more robust than conventional rowing boats. This ancient type of ship has proven itself here on the coast.
Hi, Michael. Just stay on the course heading, please.
I mean, what's the point of having the sea on your doorstep when you don't use it, you know? I think that's how everybody feels, really. The sea is as much part of us as the land is, yeah. It's in our blood. Isn't that right, chaps?
Yep. Yeah,
absolutely.
Craster's rowing tradition is reminiscent of a time when fishing was still a way of life here. Today, tourism is the most important source of income in the village. People come for the ruins of Dunstable Castle, but also for a specialty for which Craster is famous throughout the UK: smoked herring. This delicacy is produced in the Robson family smokehouse, which is 170 years old. The method has never changed. The Craster family, after whom the village was named, were the house's original owners. In 1906, Olivia Robson's great-great-grandfather bought it. The 25-year-old has just finished her studies and is now preparing to take over her father's business. She has been familiar with how the smokehouse works since her childhood.
So it's herring. The herring used to come off the shores of Craster, but now we have to get them from Norway due to the fact that overfishing, because there used to be 5 smokehouses in the area, but sadly we're the only ones left now, and the fish is not good quality anymore off these shores. We sometimes get them from Scotland, though. We use Scottish herring as well if we can.
The Craster kippers are popular. Up to 7,000 herrings are smoked each day at the Robsons' place for customers all over Europe. They are also on sale in the smokehouse shop and available at the restaurant. The entire process is precisely timed. The 2 smoking chambers are never idle. Olivia Robson's grandfather still comes by every day. He is proud of his granddaughter. The smoking process utilizes oak and takes up to 16 hours. It is an art in itself.
The lighting of the fires requires a lot of technique. The shavings go on first, and the fires have to be a certain size depending on the oil content of the fish, also depending on the size of the fish. It's also very dependent on the wind. So we have shutters at the top, which we open and close depending on the weather and the wind, to help put the oxygen into the smoke houses.
The smell of smoke fires has characterized the place for centuries. Olivia Robson's younger sister, Georgia, also spends her summers here, helping out at the company during the semester holidays. She would also like to take the plunge one day and return to the remote village that only 300 residents call home.
Hey, who's this for then?
The family heritage must be maintained. It is a challenge for the sisters.
Yep, and we've got like 9 more to go.
We have a lot of respect for the guys and the people that work here because we know how long they've worked here and how much they've helped our dad and our granddad.
It means a lot to us, the family business, and I think they can see and they respect that because we come back every summer, we do come and work, we do the same jobs as they do. I think that's really important for us to understand how the system works, so then when we take over, they know that we're not just walking in willy-nilly.
Yeah.
It's like we understand how everything works, yeah.
Well, you better get going.
I'll see you later.
The last smoking house in Crasta has borne witness to the village's long fishing tradition. For centuries, people survived on what the sea gave them. William Turner is a city boy from Covent Garden in London and is fascinated by the ancient practices in the remote high north. He is impressed by this way of living, intimately connected to nature, exposed to the elements. The Northumberland coast is lined with ancient fortresses. The open sea was dangerous, making good defences an absolute necessity. The buildings are increasingly regulated to the background of Turner's motifs. He is more interested in the wild nature that surrounds them. Then, as now, Bamborough Castle towers above the coast. The fortress is built on rock, a testament to the power of the ruler who owns it. The archaeologist Graham Young conducts his research here, but though the pristinely restored castle is a tourist magnet, it is of little interest to him.
Up on the top of the hill, we have all the important public buildings that the public go around in a beautifully manicured lawn. So it's much easier to give us a quiet corner of the castle to go and dig big, messy holes in.
For Graham Young, Bamborough is a stroke of luck, as people have been building their fortresses here for more than 2,000 years.
Hi, Tom. How's it going?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Got some nice bits of organic coming out.
Yeah.
Nice bits of charcoal, lots of roots, and some bits of animal bone as well.
Got a horn. Small cow.
Very, very, yeah, quite young.
Think the horn a bit?
Could be. It's just...
We're looking really to reconstruct the environmental evidence from the site where people were living and working. So it's what they're eating and discarding, and any other artifacts that come up. And because we're using such a very thin mesh, we'll get pretty much 100% recovery of all finds from that sample. even the smallest little items. So fish bone, all sorts of things that are often missed during normal excavation. We'll get a full sample here.
As they do every summer, volunteers have helped to conduct several weeks of excavations in Bamborough. Young and his staff are now evaluating the collected samples, piece by piece.
I suppose it's a kind of perverse mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you like the minute detail.
Pedantry.
Pedantry,
mainly.
yeah. But not taken too far, because there's a point where you have to realise, actually, this is pointless.
Yeah, and there's...
The excavation site has been active since 2001.
Yeah, it's not doing too badly, actually.
Yeah.
Bits and bobs.
We have the excavation here. Unfortunately, it's now mostly covered. But we're down to around the 8th century in places, probably 9th in others. And it's basically, we're in the fortress, but we're basically in an industrial zone. So it's soil, very crude timber buildings, and lots of waste, industrial waste and food waste. So it's where things are happening and where processes are being undertaken to support the royal court, which is on the summit of the hill.
Different peoples have left their mark here over the course of 2 millennia. Before the Anglo-Saxons, which Graham Young deals with, the Celts and Romans shaped the castle and its surroundings. After that, the Normans gave the fortress its present appearance. Each bone they discover helps the archaeologists to identify other finds.
It's a metatarsal from a cow, so that's like the back shin bone.
We found a beautiful artifact from this level, and we've dated it only because of its artistic style. But this bone is part of this surface. Because the bone has carbon within it, we can radiocarbon date that sample, and that will give us a datable horizon. So wherever we see this linear surface, we will have a date on it. It's one more little piece in the jigsaw puzzle of the site.
The archaeological finds prove just how important the north of England once was. As a royal seat, Bamborough was both a commercial and a cultural centre. In William Turner's time, the region is once again gaining in importance. Coal deposits make the northeast a centre of the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain. The coal finds its way to London via the Tynes estuary near Newcastle. On a later trip in 1818, Turner is curious to take note of the nighttime energy on the river. At the time, coal laid the foundation for today's modern port. Heavy industry has long since disappeared from Newcastle. The former working-class city is now known as a cosmopolitan college town. The dancers of Star and Shadow meet in a former industrial building dating from Turner's time. They continue a tradition that was developed by the miners. The proud labourers had their own dance, known as the rapper sword.
It's not particularly slower, is it?
Louisa Squires instructs the group.
2, 3, 4, 5.
It is believed that the rapper swords were used to clean the backs of the pit ponies, which were sweaty and dirty from underground work. Each of the 5 dancers is assigned a specific rapper sword and an accompanying position.
We are a fantastic team, obviously, but we have there's some competitions. One particular competition that happens every year that's called DIRT, Dance England Rapper Tournament, and we have won that a couple of years in a row, so I think that they've succeeded with the aim of getting a team that's rivaling the male teams.
Rapper dancing has long been something reserved only for men, and it is taken seriously. Bitter rivalries develop between the dancers of the different mining villages. The tradition is forgotten after the Second World War. It is Newcastle students who finally revived the dance in the 1980s. Today, there are rapper dance teams all over the world, more than ever before.
The rhythms that we're making with our feet, that's something that we really need to practice to make sure everyone's stepping together and it sounds really nice and crisp. So that's one important element. The other is sword handling. So making sure that your hands are high enough that you don't kind of knock other people on the head. And there's just like little intricacies about the way you maybe move your hands and things that allow the swords to move freely around each other.
The rapper's soft steel is what makes the complex formations possible. They were originally an inferior alternative to real swords.
I get a real buzz from dancing. It's fast-paced and you do get an adrenaline rush from that. It's also, for me, I love the team element. There's always 5 dancers and you really get to know how other people dance. You've got to pay attention to where they are in the team and in the dance at all times. And lock. 5, 6, 7.
The dance competitions are very important to those involved in the scene, but the local pub remains the real stage of the rapper dancers. The girls dress up for their performance. The rapper dance costumes are reminiscent of the traditional working clothes of the miners. Tommy is always there, playful, entertaining, and yet determined. He keeps the pub tidy, and he collects the money. In the past, pub crawls were used to top up the coffers of the strike fund.
We'd get together and we'd just go down around different pubs. So the pubs don't know you're coming, and you come in, you just check with them, they're happy for you to do a dance, you do a dance, and then normally have a drink or two, and then just go on to another pub. And so you get, in an evening, you get lots of dancers in. You know, we might do 5, 6, 7 dancers in an evening as we just go around the different pubs and just enjoy it, really.
The industrial past of the Northeast is a central feature of its identity. In the 18th and 19th centuries, technological development progressed rapidly here. It is an attractive motif for Turner. He is fascinated by the power of steamships and locomotives. The young artist was raised in a family of modest means, and his first trip to northern England is a challenge. Never before has he ventured this far away from home. The ruins of Norham is the northernmost point reached during Turner's trip. David Stead is also travelling there for the first time today. The landscape painter knows how important this place was for Turner. For his Turner project, David wants to understand the magic that attracted his artistic colleague here. The pictures of Norham Castle are William Turner's breakthrough. Here, for the first time, he develops his handling of colour to the level of perfection that will make him world famous as a master of light. The light in the north enchanted and inspired him. Shortly before his death, he will paint Norham again. Turner has already arrived at his radical style, which will make him a pioneer of Impressionism. Scotland is visible from Norham Castle. Turner plunged deeply into the ancient remote borderland that is separated by the River Tweed.
It's changed a lot since Turner's time. You know, surprisingly, there are more trees now than there were in Turner's time, but it still is a magnificent building.
David Stead finally finds what he's looking for on the Scottish riverbank.
This view of the castle, it's not exactly what Turner had, but I think it's probably the best we're going to get. And it also includes the river, which is lovely, because today it's the light is glinting on that. And I think the castle really could be fairly incidental in it. I don't think it is the main motif.
David Stead always paints with the water that his motifs offer him.
Bit of a tweed.
The moods created by the light in the north are impressive. They change with the wind, a constant challenge for artists like Turner and David Stead.
I don't want to get bogged down with, making everything right. It just doesn't work. Well, you get something that dies very quickly, and we, just want to try and get some real life into this thing. And then once you've got it, the trick is to try and keep it, which may or may not happen, we'll see.
The preparatory work Stead does with his motifs on site is essential for his further work in the studio. Turner also draws lifelong inspiration from the sketches he made of the north.
I always have doubts. I think if I knew what I was going to paint when I started, then I wouldn't bother painting it because, it's like, it's done in my head. I just want to get some contrast into it.
The days spent in Norham's pristine nature are an experience of awakening for the young Turner. When he returns a few years later, he steps out of the carriage and takes his hat off to the ruins of the castle. This is where he began his career as an artist, he says. The intense experiences of nature on the rough coastline leave an impression on the urban-dwelling Turner that lasts throughout his life. This immediacy, the daily struggle of people with the elements, inspires powerful images in him. From that point on, they remain a central theme of his art. For the last fisherman in Craster, Turner's experiences of nature continue to be found in everyday life. Andrew Hogg and his brother David catch lobsters. The good stocks and high prices of this delicacy ensure a steady income for the Hoggs. The lobster traps often lie tied to a line in the water for several days. The Hoggs lure the crustaceans into the traps with dead fish. After the baskets are emptied, they are immediately refilled with bait, cheap frozen fish from Norway.
He steers a boat for maybe his one fleet of lobster pots, puts them where he wants to, and then the next fleet, I'll put them where I want to put them. So we'll just take turns. So there's not one doing most of the work, so we'll just alternate. If things aren't going right, we'll argue a little bit, but the majority of the time we get on. We were going to see when 3 or 4 year old, just with my dad and that, and then left school at 16 and went straight to sea. We just sort of grew up and learned where to put the lobster pots over the years. But fishing was in the blood, I think.
Exactly where they lay their traps remains the fishermen's secret, because it happens time and again that their catches are stolen. Lobsters are very valuable. They fetch over €200 each in summertime and twice that before Christmas.
That's about a normal size. It's about a normal size. That's how you measure them. From there to there. Small, that one.
Babies and females with eggs get tossed back into the water. That is done to protect the good stocks and ensure the livelihood of the last fisherman in Craster. At this point, the fishermen are free to proceed as they see fit. There are no fishing quotas for lobsters. Craster's port now belongs to the Hogg family. The father of the two brothers bought it from the Craster family in order to at least guarantee his sons an existence as fishermen in the village. As owners, they are able to save on mooring fees and to hold off the competition. Lobsters can survive for a while on land, but they must be transported quickly in water basins to the locations where they will be collected by the customers. Father Douglas knows the hard life of a fisherman well and still likes to help with the landing, but these days he only takes tourists out on fishing trips.
I would like them to have had a trade, but that's what they wanted to do when they left school, like, you know. They didn't like school, but they're good fishermen, you know. They enjoy what they do, you know, and that's the main thing, isn't it? It's hard work. And it's a bad harbour here, like, that's why we're the only ones left fishing out here, because when the weather's bad, they've got to be pulled up there. We've got to pull them all up there. And last Christmas, you couldn't stand here. The sea was coming right over the top and washing right up there and hitting the houses, like, you know. It was that bad.
In spite of the harsh conditions, the grandchildren also want to carry on the family tradition of fishing one day. The fishermen from Craster had not heard about Turner's paintings of their home, but they recognized the motifs immediately.
The stones are different here. It's not, it's a lot more rugged.
The coastline isn't right here. It's higher, and there's not as many rocks as that.
I think there's a lobster there, look.
On his journey, Turner is ultimately drawn to the lake region in the west of northern England. There are no fortresses here, no castles to draw, and the weather is less summer-like. He has now fully dedicated himself to the dramatic landscapes of this unique region. He inevitably experiments a lot with light and shadow. Up in the green mountains that surround the lakes, semi-wild sheep find their home in summer. Turner meets them on his hikes. The annual Rydal Show emerged from the centuries-old tradition of sheep breeding in the heart of the lake region. Herding dog owners have been meeting here since 1901 to compare their animals' skills in dealing with sheep. After continuous rain the day before, people are confident about today. Claire Logan-Stevens is the president of the association. She comes from a local farming family. For 4 generations now, they have been looking after the fate of the Rydal Show.
What makes this sheepdog trial slightly different is the sheep you can see behind you are Swaledale sheep, which is the traditional sheep in this part of the world, in the Lake District. And for 90% of the time, they live high up on the fells, so they don't see a sheepdog very often. And then we bring about 400 of them down here for the trials, and they're all a little bit like, oh, what's going on? So it's a real test for the sheepdog handlers to be able to get their dogs to be really calm with the sheep and get them to go through the obstacles and pen them at the end.
Throughout the day, a jury evaluates the abilities of both the dogs and their owners.
Cultivate here, Burnley. It's go to the boss. Can we have some sheep, please? So we can have some sheep out and Shirley to the gate.
Border Collie owners from the region, as well as from all over the country, meet to compete against each other in a test of their dogs' abilities in this special situation. They often compete with several animals that have received various levels of training, and each of them has a unique personality.
It's very, very traditional, and we've tried to keep it more or less the same every year, so we haven't introduced things like sort of very commercial things. It's all very traditional and all linked with the farming community.
This tradition attracts more and more visitors. Around 3,000 are now expected to turn out each year. Back in Yorkshire, in his studio in an old manor, David Stead works on his paintings of Norham Castle.
Now I'm largely working from memory, and I'm lucky in that I do have a very good visual memory, so I can bring it to painting. Everything else is hopeless. Can't remember anything else, but I can remember kind of images, and they are kind of seared there by drawing, by producing little watercolors or working with acrylic. And then when I get to the studio, it's quite easy. So I'll use those as a kind of basis, really just for drawing it out. And I know where I'm going to go from there. I know where I'm going to start to paint.
David Stead has made a name for himself in landscape painting. It is a genre that not many artists of his caliber engage with today. But he has the necessary talent and contacts in the art scene. Many customers have been loyal to him for a long time and have been buying from him since his time studying fine art in London.
Some of it is a reference to what's there, obviously, because otherwise it's not a landscape, but actually it's about a memory of how it felt, and it was a very windy day, so there's kind of tempo to painting.
For David Stead, none of his previous motifs are as closely linked to Turner as Norham. The time has come for a special tribute to the artist, who often placed figures in his landscapes.
Just get some kind of sense of a fishing rod in there, that would be great, wouldn't it? Having been to Norham and kind of walking in the footsteps of Turner, I'm very tempted to put the fisherman in. And I don't normally put figures into my paintings, but if I put him in very loosely, it might work. It might not, but it might. So I'm going to give it a crack, I think, and see where we go with it.
The fisherman stayed. The painting quickly found a buyer. Turner is a magnet. Further events have grown up around the herding dog competition at the Rydal Show. Here too, it is the dogs that are the stars. Dog races have been held since 1913. Breeder Alan Little enters his dogs every year. His female dog, Jenny's Delight, is about to compete in the first race. Known as the Little Man's Horse Race, the tradition goes back a long time in the Lake District. The first races were held as early as 1840.
She won here last time. She won Ambleside Sports last time, but she's very temperamental. She's a typical female, so if she's not in the mood, she won't win. If she's in the mood, she'll have a good chance. Yeah. She is favourite.
Anything like Lynn's an even £2, and then she can put 458.
Excitement runs high at the starting line. The dogs get a whiff of the scent that they are meant to follow during the race. They have been trained for this.
Anybody else on the first race? Evens on the middle levels.
Once they're off the lead, they've gone. They jump fences, go over becks, run over field, stop for water if they're thirsty. So once they're off the lead, there's nothing you can do with them.
Good racing dogs remain active for 6 to 7 years. It has long been clear that Jenny's Delight will one day become the little family's pet when her athletic career comes to an end. The dogs need about 30 minutes to cover the 16-kilometre distance. They are eagerly awaited at their destination. Jenny's Delight lives up to her reputation. She leads and wins. Good racing dogs are financial assets for breeders like Alan Little. They are courted and pampered like little kings.
She's focused on the food when she comes in. She had chicken and pasta up for when she came in. She knew what she was coming for. She knows where to win. Sometimes she doesn't want to bother. She just lets them run. But today, where she likes, she's the boss.
The prize money today goes to Alan Little. What is likely the strangest competition takes place all day long, in parallel to the other events. At multiple dog shows, beauty pageants are being held for the various breeds of hunting dogs. In a traditional outfit and with great seriousness, the posture and movements of young beagles are being tested. Claire Logan-Stevens will announce the winners this evening.
So the overall winner of the best walk goes to number 45, Glenn Catherine Sampson. Everything's gone really well. The weather makes such a difference here, so the fact it's sunny all day and people can sit, on the grass and enjoy everything that's going on. So yeah, it's all gone really well. It's a real social event after all the showing's been done. Lots of discussion probably about why such and such a hound was chosen as the winner, or lots of catching up on what's going on and looking forward to the months ahead.
William Turner will go on to travel many more places, outside of Great Britain as well. But the unique landscapes of northern England will continue to inspire and shape his work.